Welcome to today's session on our ServiceNow integration, and I'm very happy to see some familiar faces, some customers where I know you are currently considering integrating with ServiceNow, as well as some people who spent some time at our booth in the last yesterday and today to ask some questions on how is your integration looking like, what is it about, what is it thinking, how does it work. So I'm very happy to share insights on that, give you some hopefully very practical examples, look a bit into the tool, how it actually works, how it's actually set up. So on today's session, first of all, I'll start with an overview on the benefits, the logic of the integrating not only LeanIX and ServiceNow, but the two worlds of EA and ITSM. Then go into the use cases of our integration. So I'll not just talk about attributes, I'll talk about use cases. And then at the end, show you how to set up the integration. And hopefully give you a good feeling that you don't need 3 months of developers' time to get that one started, but that it's really much easier. And in the end, I'll save some time for questions, because I figured out that this is obviously a lot of you are dealing with the decision how to integrate those two worlds, so I want to make sure that I can answer the questions in the end. So on the concept of the ServiceNow integration, first of all, and this might answer some questions, LeanIX integration is available as an application in the ServiceNow store. What you can see here, I did that screenshot 2 days ago. So this is the most current version, 1.0.10. It's certified for the current London version. And as Andre said yesterday, we are working on the next one, so to be certified for the Madrid release at the point of time in the future. So this is a promise that we give, that we are constantly working on that integration to make it compatible to the recent ServiceNow release. So basically, on the ServiceNow side, it's an app that you can install. First question that might arise, or second question, is why should I integrate those two worlds? So if we look at the world of EA and the world of ITSM, we believe that a strong use case is in doing some forward planning. So defining roadmaps, looking into the future, and being able to derive certain standards from that. I'll go deeper into that in the next slides. On the other hand, from the operational level, then analyzing where do I have certain technology risks, how can I mitigate them, where are violations, etc. And last but not least, in order to simply adopt modern technologies faster, which are then driven by the EA. And as we heard in yesterday's keynote, that's a kind of inspiration that we need from the role of the enterprise architect. So if you look at those two worlds, the strategic road mapping perspective, and I'm coming here from a user story perspective, in order to strategically transform the IT landscape, I need a holistic overview with business context. And that's a relevant part here. So I want to see it in the whole context from an EA perspective, bridging the gap between the business perspective and the infrastructure perspective. Whereas on the other hand, in order to ensure smooth IT operations, I need an exact inventory of my IT infrastructure with all necessary details. So you see the level of abstraction is different here between EA and ITSM. So when you compare both tools, and I'm a big fan of ServiceNow. ServiceNow is an outstanding tool to store and process multiple of millions of CIs. So if you look at it, it's related over tables, and that's what it's there for, to really be exact there. Whereas on the LeanIX side, we believe our benefit is to really collaboratively, so with responsibilities, with people contributing the content, and then making these dependencies visual, communicatable to project managers, to your stakeholders in compliance, to the CIO, so to have really meaningful dashboards and reports here. And you can also explain that quite well. ServiceNow is from the ITSM world with focus when they first started on help desk, incident management, change management, and the vision to avoid email. That's what they clearly say. Whereas in EA, we are thinking about target architectures, about the future, about transforming, about rationalization of applications, about technology risk management. So this is a more holistic view, as we call it. And our mission is to avoid Excel, Visio, and PowerPoint. So this is where we believe at the moment, where you create an Excel, where you create in PowerPoint, it's already outdated. Because it's just a snapshot, and we believe in a way of collaborative, continuing maintenance of the data, also fed by integrations. And this is where this interlink comes into the game again. So if you look at an architecture stack, I did not take our data model. I just take the McKinsey architecture stack. So we see on the business process level, or in the business architecture, just to give you some examples on possible integrations. We see tools like Signavio, which I will be talking about in the next session. And on the infrastructure, operational, and we have tools like ServiceNow going into the configuration items, very, very specific with details. And we believe that LeanIX is the perfect link to bridge those two worlds, so the business world and the infrastructure world, and translating it via applications, via interfaces, via projects that are giving changes to the application landscapes, via data objects that are transferring through the applications. So this is how that fits together. So going a bit deeper still taking the architecture stack as a reference. We are now talking about scopes. So I'm not sure if you're all familiar with our fact sheet types. That's the blue ones. And the green ones are abstracted table names in ServiceNow. So you would see there's a whole range of tables or of fact sheet types, like process, business, capability, that we see in the more or less in the ownership of the EA team, user groups as well. So relating that information, and then we come to the similar ones. Application that, in my experience of the last implementations, in 70-80% of the cases maps to the business service in ServiceNow. So some of you might be in the beginning of implementing ServiceNow. Some of you might be further ahead. You can discuss for days if it's really a business service or if it shouldn't be a business application. This is the recommended way that we would recommend to go for. Nevertheless, our integration works as well with different kinds of configuration on the ServiceNow end. So we are not tied to the CMDB CI service table, what it's called in the end. It could be any other table. It's relevant for us that we have the links when we go deeper. We are talking about IT components on the LeanIX side, whereas we're talking about product models on the ServiceNow side. So those of you who are perhaps a little bit familiar with ServiceNow, you know there are the CIs, which are the instances, and the abstraction of that is the product model. Also, I give examples on the next slide. That can be even more abstracted. That is a certain Dell Power Rack is a server, so that would be the technology stack then. And as you clearly see, configuration items and assets are tables is data that resides within ServiceNow, but that is not touched by the integration to be transferred directly to LeanIX. We use this information, and that brings me to the next point, to be able to identify the relations on the ServiceNow side. So I hope it's kind of readable for you, and I'll guide you through that. So what we see here is, I'll start here. We have an application on LeanIX side. I just gave you the context, so we have some attributes here. We can have a lifecycle, business criticality. This one gets transferred, this is 1A, to a business service in ServiceNow. The business service can be, and I'm just talking about the recent implementations that I did, and where we saw that resonated with customers' data models in ServiceNow that is connected to a CI hardware. And I'm giving here a kind of a cryptical name on a server instance. This one, again, is abstracted to a product model of type hardware. So we see a Dell PowerEdge, which is a rack server, can have a version or a number, whatever. And we see that on this CI hardware, we can have either a direct link to the software, which would be the manual way. That's the software that is running on it. Could be also a database, or we can use the way we are the software asset management, so SAM module of ServiceNow, where we can make use of the discovery capabilities. You see that there is no direct link between the CI hardware and the IT component. So we don't transfer CIs to LeanIX. Instead, what we do is we take the product model, so the abstract version of it, transfer it to IT components of type hardware or of type software. And by doing that, so this whole range, and by doing that regularly and still checking, is that available, we get that 1C. So that's the relation on the LeanIX side. And on an attribute basis, we can transfer in both directions, and we always do then nightly full checks if that construct here. So did somebody skip that relation here, or that relation here makes more sense. So did somebody say, hey, this is business services not running anymore on a certain hardware, so we won't see it anymore here. So this is the logic of the integration. We can further abstract from the product model, so saying, hey, this is a software, or this database could be a relational database, and then bring that information to the technology stack here, and again, have that relation. As you'll see later, this is one way and the recommended way of doing it. Nevertheless, in discussions with our customers, we figure out that there might be deviations to that model where you say, hey, I want to manage tech stacks in LeanIX. I don't want to manage tech stacks in ServiceNow, because this is just for my CIs and just for my product model, so you can do it the other way around as well. And then make that information available here. Another thing comes into place when we're talking about Technopedia. So this is about lifecycle management, where you could say, I have these product models. They have vendor lifecycles. I can transfer those ones here, and I can link them to Technopedia. And what I can do is I can populate the lifecycle back to Technopedia. Or what I can say, and this goes into standards, I can say, hey, when I talk about databases, I want to make sure that we are using a Postgres database over an Oracle database. So I can define that here as a standard, make it visible here. Is it a standard? Is it approved? Is it not approved? And then doing the analysis in how many cases do we actually have violations of that? Because we probably figured out that Oracle 11g is not the right way to go at the moment, and we should do something here. So this is where or how this plays together. And just experience from the numerous conversations that I have, it's very crucial to have a common understanding on this level. That might sound very superficial, but it's mandatory that you have a common understanding between EA and ITSM. What is an application? What are we really talking about? And as I said, it might be business service, it could be a business application, but that you're always talking about the same inventory. That in the moment where you plan a new application, this is somehow visible here. In the moment where you get rid of an application, this or get rid of components, this is somehow visible, so that you avoid having data silos at this point. So, ServiceNow in LeanIX. Now we're getting a little bit more practical. We're seeing the inventory. We're seeing one application, HR admin. What we can do here, and this is now on the attribute level. Say, hey, I want to manage the description here, or the application owner does it in LeanIX. I do it, I save it, I see it's linked to ServiceNow. Here, I can even change further attributes. It's flexible, as you will see, and can from there jump directly to ServiceNow. So in the moment where the sync happens, we create those links and make it visible, and see directly that here the description has been applied, and this new criticality rating also has been applied here. So that was just the case. Okay, we have an application, a business service, it's pushed, and we can see we can manage the attributes. We don't have to do double maintenance of data, and we can include as many attributes in the sync as we want, or we can leave them out where we say, hey, functional fit really is not relevant to see, so we just manage it on the LeanIX side, but it's not relevant to be synced to the ServiceNow side. So next example, we are looking at the IT components now, and we're looking at one Dell PowerEdge server, so quite familiar with that. We see that it's linked to the provider Dell. We see that it's linked to ServiceNow. So again here, we can jump directly from the LeanIX fact sheet into ServiceNow. We see the form here. We see the assets, the dependencies, and link that one to Technopedia. That's where the lifecycle management comes in. So this is now again on LeanIX side, and also have that data available in LeanIX. So the way is from the component or from the CI to the product model, transferring that one to LeanIX, populating it with attributes there, even though it originally came from ServiceNow, and being able to populate that data back. So on an attribute level, you can say, I want to manage for an IT component that in LeanIX, and I want to manage that in ServiceNow. Okay. So next one, now looking a little bit more into road mapping and impact analysis. I look at the IT components, and I see that identified by the integration, I have my Dell component here. I see that it's that the application HR admin runs on it as a hardware. So this is what basically comes in. I can directly jump to it, and again here at that point where I see all the dependencies. That's how it looks like on the ServiceNow side. Are then abstracted and shown here in the form of Dell. So we're not taking care about the number of Linux servers that we just saw on the form of ServiceNow. We're just considering the real product model that lies behind that. Obviously, there should be a Linux operating system as well involved. That we could see here, but this is due to the demo data here. nevertheless, that's the way how you can do the impact analysis. You look at a certain component, you look at the life cycle, and you see at which point of time applications are being supported by a certain component. So when you look at the dependencies, I just talked about dependencies, and when you go in or look at one business service on the ServiceNow side, and you open the dependency view, this is also kind of a real example. You have the business service here. You have further dependent business services here. You've got Windows servers here. You've got a database here, and it goes even further down. So that's how Hype Collab looks in ServiceNow. That's how Hype Collab looks in LeanIX. So you get the abstraction of the 4 involved hardware components here that are lying under these and that hardware component. So this is basically just to make it very transparent. We do the translations, we query through that, and one layer is missing here because it's not shown on the ServiceNow dependency view, but the layer of the product models you could imagine here, and that's what we take in as a hardware on that end. So now to the question, how's that set up? That's the administration section in LeanIX. You would see a ServiceNow integration available. You can log in with the instance with a username. Here you see that you're very free to configure the fact sheet types and the related ServiceNow tables. So it's basically it says software product model, etc. And this is where the relations are built or defined. So furthermore, you can then go to the mapping and then define per field what you want to actually map. So what does the description in LeanIX map to in ServiceNow? What kind of mapping do I have between business criticality, which in the positive example are 4 values on each side, so it's kind of easy to do the mapping, but it can also be done 5-4, 5-1, whatever, however you want to map those. As you see here, you are very free to select the tables, to define per table what is the master side, so is it ServiceNow or is it LeanIX, and then go here. You can add multiple mappings however you want. So this is basically how it's set up. Perhaps just to give some remark here, we took or as you see here, it's the admin user. Obviously, we wouldn't recommend use the admin user. We have some clear recommendations on how to set up an integration user on the ServiceNow side, so that we only have read and write access to the necessary tables, and this is all well documented. So this is just for the purpose of the demonstration. Choose a right integration user, and then this is not a problem. It only must relate to the tables that you have here. Everything that happens through the integration is absolutely transparent. And you would see on an ID level from ServiceNow IDs and fact sheet IDs what has happened here. If you click on the blue one, you would also see what is the update that has been happening, so that this is not a black box, the integration, but on our end, the enterprise architect can always track what happened here, what happened in every run that the integration went through. So this is probably, I don't know if it says that, but this is probably a full sync. So because it includes a lot of items, you just saw that I kind of changed the description. So this would trigger also an entry into the sync log where we just have single items in that list. But to be able also to troubleshoot, we are very strict on the LeanIX and concerning the the naming. So we only allow unique display names, what we call, that can be different on the ServiceNow end. And that, that brings you to that point where you would say we've got a conflict of display name, and please check it so that you can really work on the data to make it transferable. Okay, so to wrap it up, through the LeanIX and ServiceNow integration, you can seamlessly connect the two worlds. And most important, you can avoid data silos. So this is, I think, a very like the very first step that you should consider, that between two worlds you're talking about the same language. First of all, you can look ahead, plan ahead, make this architecture information available to the operations. You can be in the position to do technology risk evaluations to see where do we have still the technology risks. You can make it very transparent in a nice dashboard and see what actions do I take from here. And you can also say, as an EA team, you want to define certain standards that you want to make visible, and not just visible through nice reports. You probably heard, or hopefully heard, Patrick's session on standards management, but you can make it available directly via ServiceNow to the operation teams. As you hopefully saw, the integration is easy to set up. So what it requires is the installation of the app on the ServiceNow or in the ServiceNow instance through the store, create your user, insert an API token. This is on a technical level everything that needs to be done on ServiceNow side. On LeanIX side, it's basically working without. So we need to activate that what you saw in the admin settings because it's not in the standard. But technically, that is not a challenge. And just to give you an indication, so the fastest setup that we managed when all the setup was done on ServiceNow side, we managed to take it live, including attribute mappings in 45 minutes. So and then obviously started the first sync, which might take some other minutes, and then seeing really tangible results within less than half a day. Obviously, it requires a lot of communication between the EA team and the ITSM team. I'm aware of that. I've gone through several implementations, so I'm very aware that it's not a 45-minute job. It's much more than that. But from the technical side, we did our best to not build any blockers here, but to make it easy and accessible. Last but not least, also experience from the implementations. Obviously, you would never start such a thing on your production environment on both ends. But you would first start it on dev or in test and go on, however your setup is on both sides. So we are very happy to support you there, to do a proof of concept, and just to see what kind of data is being delivered through the integration. As you see, that doesn't involve politics so much. If you just go into the test environments and then see, hey, what kind of data do we have? See the first reports. Does it make sense? And eventually figure out that on some of the data linkages that I thought do not exist, even though you might believe that they exist. Because only when you have the right data, when you have built the right relations, then the integration can really tap the full potential.